Hey guys, it's Danny. Today I'm gonna tell you why I gave up the discus as promised. Mainly I will focus on the negatives. Now these negatives are obviously very personal. You might not find them to be negatives. You might. Anyway, I hope you get something from my experience and my opinion. If you've ever wondered how it is to have some discus, if you've never had discus before but you did have other fish, and if you had only planted tanks before your discus journey, because oh man, is it a different journey. I hope you will find it, useful, but take everything I say with a grain of salt because I will be very, very subjective about things. And you might not have the same views as me, but I hope, you'll get something out of this video. So, as you guys remember, this tank initially had discus, and I wanted to make a planted discus tank because one, I did not want to do water changes every day, and two, I really like plants, I really do. And I did it, and it worked very well. From the point of view of water parameters, it was great. The plants were doing their job, but because discus have a very specific water environment, I would say, they need some specific conditions that many plants don't like. I was kind of limited as to what plants I should keep together with the discus. And if you remember, I had a lot of Echinodorus or Amazon swords, some cryptocorynes, plants that could withstand high temperatures, 30 degrees Celsius temperatures. And while I do love planted tanks and plants, I would definitely not consider that tank to be planted the way that I usually do things or the way that I usually like. It was planted. It was just not planted enough to put it mildly. So one of the main reasons, there are two main reasons. One of the main reasons why I decided that, maybe discus tanks are not for me is the limitation on plants. Now, I did get comments saying, hey, I managed to grow this plant or the other in a discus tank. We found the middle ground at 28 degrees Celsius or something and it worked out. Yes, but those plants do not look as good as they look when you grow them in lower temperatures, which are more adequate for them. And you also provide nutritious substrates and CO2 addition. I did not have CO2 addition in my discus tank because the temperatures were already so high. I didn't want to, what I did, moreover, was try to increase oxygen in the water. And whatever plant I would have put in that tank, it would definitely not have looked as good as it does like in a cooler water environment. Now, one of the worst things about unhappy plants that are barely hanging on there, is the fact that they will be much more prone to algae. And your entire setup will be much more prone to algae. And actually, the comment that I got, which was saying, oh, I managed to grow plants with discus in high temperatures just fine, the last part of the comment was like, but I had a lot of algae. How do you manage algae? Well, that's the problem. If the plants are not happy, they will be much more sensitive and more prone to algae. Algae is a whole subject and everybody has maybe a different experience and maybe a different opinion on things. I'll tell you in short terms what my opinion is on algae. They happen due to two reasons, or two important reasons with multiple tinier reasons attached to them. One of the biggest, and I believe the biggest reason, is plant health and plant happiness. If a plant is not healthy and is unhappy, it will be covered in algae. Why? Well, there are many theories. I will not go and give you any theory, but it is absolutely my experience that plants which are not grown in optimal conditions for what they are, for what they can endure, they will be much more prone to getting algae and just making your entire setup be algae prone and having a very weird imbalance. And the second main reason for algae is the nutrient imbalance. With unhappy plants, you usually get a nutrient imbalance because if they don't grow as fast as they should, and if they're not happy, they're not absorbing nutrients either. So those nutrients accumulate in the water and algae feeds on them. Nature finds a balance. Algae, they do absorb the same things as plants. They even absorb ammonia. And I would say, like in my experience, they absorb ammonia more than plants. I've had plants completely melt due to ammonia spikes. I'm looking at you, Amazonia. Yeah, that's why usually with stuff like Amazonia soils, I start with like the dark start to just not put my plants through the ammonia spike, because many melt. In vitro plants particularly seem to melt a lot in very high ammonia environments. Well, algae thrive in high ammonia environments. They're not as sensitive as plants to ammonia, and they absorb that ammonia, in my opinion, better than nitrate. It is an opinion. I'm not a chemist, did not do like lab studies. It's just what I experienced and the conclusions that I draw. You have ammonia spikes, you have unhappy plants but happy algae. But if you have nitrate in the water, you have happy plants, not so happy algae. Unless you have unhappy plants as it is, case in which algae will do with whatever. Although unhappy plants, when they decompose, they release ammonia, so that's why the algae proliferates. It's very complicated. I think you know by now, the chemistry of an aquarium is very complicated and it's hard to get into the details. But to simplify things, if the plants aren't happy, and one of the reasons why plants are not happy is temperature, then algae will be happy. So that's why we get algae. So to get back to the discus, that's why I limited my planting to echinodoros and things that I knew would not be so unhappy in high temperatures. And echinodoros are also very good at absorbing the nutrients in the water, ammonia and all of that. They're very, very good at that. They are the #1 plant I would use in tanks with big fish, with wasteful fish, high temperature tanks. They're the #1 plant, absolutely. They're great. But it gives the sense of everything looking the same. Do you remember everything was looking the same? They're great for discus, not so great if you want something like this. And I really missed it. I found myself really, really missing this type of a look, which this, even though it's not the greatest aquascape in the world because I have issues with designs, it brings me so much joy. Plant lushness and well-being is my, let's say, preferred or favorite part of the hobby. The plants themselves. How I arrange them and stuff, you know, aquascaping, nature aquariums, that's not my forte. I'm not good at that. I'm trash. So I kind of gravitate towards lush plant, like Dutch-inspired aquascapes, rather than, you know, those nature aquariums with a lot of hardscape. I'm just not good at it. I want a garden in my aquarium. I didn't think I would miss it as much as I did, but I did. Reason #2, the fish themselves. Don't get me wrong, discus are very beautiful, and I find maybe slightly addictive. They are. Like when you look at a beautiful discus in front of you, it's such an exhilarating feeling. They're one of the most beautiful fish. They really are, they truly are. And even if you don't like keeping discus, I think you would agree that they are some of the most beautiful fish you can keep in the hobby. Beautiful colors, beautiful patterns, they're cichlids, they have a nice personality, kind of skittish for me. Very, very afraid to walk in front of my tank, to be fully honest. But they had beautiful personalities, beautiful fish. However, and I don't really know why this is, they are indeed quite prone to stress-related ailments. I didn't have like a very bad disease with my fish or anything of the sorts, but I did notice that sometimes they would not have appetite, which meant maybe internal parasites, or maybe some gill flukes and things of the sorts. And I would always treat, should I show you my medicine tray? Hold on. Maybe not these two, but this is my tray and I have more in the cabinet. Yeah, I would have to use a lot of medicine because things would keep coming back, or I thought they were, or I was afraid they would come back. Whenever I would see a discus not having appetite, oh no, you know, it got a little stressful. I will not lie, because obviously I did not want any fish to die. They're also expensive, but you know, more than that, I didn't want them to suffer. I didn't want them, you know, to just become ill. So constantly I would have to worry about treatments, what treatments do what parasite could this be, is it something new, is it something old, am I doing something wrong? Anyway, what will tomorrow bring, pretty much. And there's just so much stress that I can take. I do have some anxiety issues, I'm not gonna go into that, but it wasn't okay for my mental health. It gave me a lot of anxiety, to be fully honest. Every day I was wondering, will I come in the room and see one of the fishes like hiding or being like darkened? They never got dark or anything, but like, what will happen next? I believe anything can happen. So yeah, I didn't really like that aspect of Discus, that they give you a little bit of anxiety. Now I come to the tank, I cannot wait to look at the tank and just see my little fish, you know, but then I reached a point where I was afraid to look at the tank when the lights turned on. What would I see? And that wasn't fun. Maybe not everybody's experience will be like this. I guess there are many factors, and let's not talk about the quality of the fish or anything, because, you know, there is no such thing here. We get the fish we find. Is it a quality related issue? Is it a this is how the fish is issue? Is it a am I doing something wrong issue? I don't know. Let's not get into that, but that's how the experience was for me with Discus. And I know there are some other people on YouTube that say that, okay, a new day, a new problem with the Discus. It's not just me, so it seems to be pretty common. I thought, well, it can't be that bad. Maybe it was. And again, I never had like severe issues. I never got like a super skinny Discus and I didn't know what to do. But just the fact that he did not want to come and eat that day was enough to trigger quite the anxiety. However, though, the Discus did grow quite a lot in my care. If you remember, I also saved some Discus. I don't think they're bad fish. I don't think, you know, they're unkeepable, unsavable, or anything of the sorts. It's just how much you tolerate, how, you know, good you are at seeing the issues and not overreacting, I guess. I don't know. But that was not a very good feeling to have, to not want to look at your tank. That's when you know something's not right, something's wrong. So those were the two main issues. Also associated with the tank, a lot of electricity spent because that heater needed to work, and at some point the heater did not cope anymore. It just did not cope, and I was forced to put in more heaters in the tank. And that heater that Oasis filter has is 400 watts. It was not enough. And it's not that it wasn't enough, it was doing nothing for the tank. When the temperatures went low in this room, not very low, even when the temperatures hit 21, 22 degrees Celsius, that heater was not able to maintain temperature. How many watts do you want me to put in this tank? It's not a big tank. Anyway, so there was a lot of cost associated with it as well. There was a lot of stress, a lot of everything. And I decided, you know what? I don't think, at least for now, I don't think Discus are for me. Maybe I had some bad luck, or maybe I'm just not made for this. You know, the whole medicine, the whole thing. Now I'm actually using the water from this tank to water my plants because it's good water and it's not dirty and I can use it. But the water from the Discus I could not use for anything. It was full of medicine at all times. It was too much for me. It was overwhelming, I guess. That's the whole thing. And I absolutely missed just gardening, you know, in my tank. And, you know, the two things combined, plus the cost of maintaining everything, you know, made it a little bit not worth it for me. And maybe in the end, maybe the Discus are not worth it for me. I mean, I absolutely enjoy seeing this tank where everybody, yeah, it has tiny fish, but everybody is doing something at all times. Everybody's doing something else. Wherever you look in the tank now, there's movement. There's fish minding their own business. I do still have cichlids. I love rams. They're my favorite fish. And they say the rams are the precursors of Discus. I've never had issues with rams of disease and stuff. But yeah, they're not necessarily beginner fish, although they're not really hard to keep. The rams are absolutely fine. They're doing their own thing. The tetras are doing their own thing. Wherever you look in the tank, there's movement, there's life, and there's joy. Now I want to look at this tank. And I think that's where we want to be with aquariums. We want to look at them. We should not be afraid of what tomorrow will bring, of how we're going to treat that fish, of are we going to lose that fish or not. Yes, it is the nature of things. Some fish are not strong enough. Maybe some fish are overly bred, overly, I guess, inbred. Losing fish is part of the hobby, but, and as bad as this will sound, losing a tetra doesn't really compare with losing a Discus. I don't like to lose any fish, but there is a difference when you lose a tetra and then you lose a discus. I don't know, do you guys feel that way? I sadly do feel that way. It's different, and not just because of the money or anything. It's just, I don't know, you get so attached to discus. You do tend to get so attached because they're just so full of personality, and you know, when you see them not eating, no. Anyway, so that's why I gave up the discus, and I think it's just much better for me to stick to planted tanks and just enjoy my gardening. And if ever I will have the possibility again with discus, I will say no. I think that's the best thing to do. I'm so happy I tried to keep them because I've always dreamed about them, and I had to fulfill this like itch that I had. But now that I had them, I will be able to much easier say no. I will always look at them at the pet shop, like when I see them, okay, I will always have to look at them because they're so beautiful. But having them, now that I've been through it, I think it's gonna be much easier for me to say no. I'm not in the mood to wake up in fear with a panic attack. Anyway, it might just be me. Let me know your experiences down below in the comments, and thank you so much for watching this video and hanging out with me. So I'll let you go, I'll stop blabbing. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye!